Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I
Yeah,
like the.
that's great.
I think I'm going to do the cross sport now that they updated it.
I'm not familiar with that one.
That's the Atlas, but the
Oh, okay. Yes.
non third row because I don't have those children to put in the back. So just the more cooler version. Uh, I've gotten a different perspective in my older age on transportation requirements.
Yes.
I get it. I get it. I used to be all into my cars, my old Volkswagens and everything. Now I'm just like, just give me a truck that goes point A to point B.
Yeah. Well, and also when you go right, and that also is driven by commute. So like our office
Hmm.
is from our house, so the need change. Like you almost get mad. I remember, I remember having an E-Class lease that we returned with like 11,000 miles on it. You know how mad I was making that payment for 36 months and only putting
Yep.
11,000 miles in the car. So
Yep.
it was like,
I've been down not quite that
right.
uh, difference in miles, but yeah, I've been down that road.
And we
Shit.
just bought a 2019 that had 13,000 miles on it.
Yeah, like what did I pay in for
And
that?
I think it was a leased vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was just made me angry.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
we need to do a road trip. I'm gonna do this road trip just cause. Just
you
that.
should have done one of those low mileage leases to 7,500 miles. I don't know if all manufacturers do that, but I know for a while Mercedes would have a 7,500 mile lease, especially for convertibles.
Well,
I think
like, and then
Ford
that's
still
even
does it.
crazy to me though. Then because I'm intentionally not going to drive it, and I'm still paying Mercedes dollars, right? So it's not like not when we're talking about a $399 deal. So I'm paying that, and then I know I'm gonna. But I think the funny thing about low mileage lease is that you're terrified. I'd rather have 12,
Yeah,
15 and drive 10 than have 10 and be terrified that I can't go somewhere.
I'm with you. Yep.
Because 25, what is it, 30 cents a mile now? What is it up to on the overage?
No, they're 25 cents still, most of them.
Oh, so reasonable.
But you can, if it's a lot of the leasing companies will let you buy the mileage before your lease is up
Correct.
Yeah.
for a much less than 25 cents.
Yeah. The key is just gotta pay attention to that, right? So
Correct.
I'm putting myself back to my commute to the dealership used to be an hour and a half.
Here we
in
go.
both
3
directions.
seconds, guys.
Let's do it.
All right. So yeah, I think continue that conversation because leasing is coming back finally.
Well, that
I'll make sure
conversation
that-
was going to end with the $10,000 in over mileage I had accrued driving back an hour and a half each day before BMW allowed you to pre-buy mileage. So yeah, that's my horror story for lease overage. Don't worry,
I
Cory.
hear you, man.
On to the next lease.
Well,
I can't.
the way to go actually right now is the doing like a one pay lease on an EV. So
Interesting.
I mean, I don't know how you feel about EVs, but we did one. We did a Nissan Aria. It had a $19,000 rebate. Yeah,
Listen to this.
in this day and age. Plus the local electric companies were doing rebates and charging stations and all this kind of stuff to incentivize it as well. And we ended up doing a one pay lease. It was $5,100.
Shut up.
Nope. I wouldn't have done it if it weren't for that.
What year was this? The Aria is not that old.
2024.
2024.
2024. Yeah. Yeah, we did this in April.
Still available?
I think so.
Look, I'll be back. Hold on. You guys go do the I'll be back here. That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's a cool looking car too. I know that we've seen just a handful, and that's a cool looking car. And
Yeah,
you
it's
said,
not bad.
you know how I feel about EVs. For 5100, I feel great about it.
So does Alex.
There's a charging station in our office building. Really good. I feel great about it.
You
We're
know
always
the
shitting on
funny thing?
EVs all the time in the forums, and he goes out and gets one.
Yep.
The hypocrisy is a landmark institution of the United States of America, right? So.
True that.
I gotta say though, I like so we haven't done anything but the most basic, what is it, stage 3 or something charging, the one where you just plug into a regular outlet.
Mhm.
I think we went and used the super fast charger one time.
Oh wow.
But like that's how much we're driving it. You know, it's just an around town vehicle. So plug that thing in. It takes like 5 days to charge from zero on that particular stage. But so just to give you an idea, like,
Right.
but man, for just going and picking the kids up from school or going to the grocery store,
So that's the no-brainer of the century.
yeah.
I don't know why, if that incentive was out there. And the funny part is we live literally behind a Nissan dealer. The next
Nah.
live on literally the major high road is where the Nissan dealer sits. We live on the street behind it. I know you'd think I'd get a piece of mail if I had that
Just
kind of
knock
news.
on the door.
Yeah. Well, now you guys are getting too far. You're prospecting. You're getting too far. You're ahead of yourself. You know, in terms of that stuff. But interesting indeed.
Yeah, I don't know. Every time I think Cory Mosley, I think BMW for some reason.
I am a long time. I would put
Maybe you used to drive BMWs. Maybe that's why I'm thinking that.
a lot. Yeah, I mean, I probably had
Okay.
15 of them. So yeah, I was a
Well, there we go.
big BMW. I mean, German, still German, but you know,
Mhm.
priorities change.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Age.
Well, I used to have a client, and I would go see him, non-car dealer, but he was in like data space, and I would go see him, and to be this old Explorer out there, and I'm like, and I pulled him aside one day, and I said, I know what your revenue is. I know where you live. This is Jersey. I know where you live in New Jersey. So what's with the Explorer? And he pulls me in. He looks left, looks right, pulls me in. He says, I got a Maserati Quattroporte at the house, but I don't drive it here. All my guys would be asking for raises.
Yep.
I'm like, brilliant, I suppose, right? I like brilliant. Like, no one asked the struggle. I got the old Explorer. That's just no one's asking any questions. I come in the Quattroporte. Everyone thinks they're not making enough.
Well, that's true.
It's funny. My dad used to. He had a public relations firm, so he'd constantly visiting clients and whatnot. So he always did a 2 or 3 year lease, but he would do the same car multiple times in a row, so his clients didn't think he was buying a new car all the time. Yep,
that's funny. Same color, like
same color. Oh yeah.
You know, the funny thing is people are weird about that. I know a car dealer right now in my head. This was not a client of mine because I wouldn't have this type of client, but I know the story that fired his landscaper because the landscaper drove an SL 500 and he felt that meant he was being charged too much for landscaping and he didn't think his landscaper should be driving a car that nice. True story.
That's idiotic.
I would have just said you can't fit a weed whacker in there. What's wrong with you?
Right.
Yeah, that's stupid. I would think maybe they got their shit together and they're making money because they do have their shit together and they do a good job.
Well, Jeff, don't you go thinking.
I know, my bad.
Right? Don't you go being logical.
Yes. It's not allowed today.
That's right.
Well, Cory,
so what's Cory been up to, man?
Yeah.
Well, listen, really, always excited to be with the Dealer Refresh team, and again, congratulations just for you guys for how many years is it now?
19
years. That
Yeah.
I mean, that first and foremost is phenomenal, and really giving people an outlet to communicate and share. I mean, you guys were one of the first people doing it, so it's always exciting to be back here with you guys, keeping your pulse here. And yes, it's pretty much public knowledge. My day-to-day life is not the car dealer world or the automotive world. However, I still have the opportunity to impact dealers. In June, I was with the Kentucky Auto Dealers Association, keynoting their event. So I'm still very connected just in terms of the community. And fundamentally, yeah, I've got my new book on the screen, Position for Growth. Fundamentally, a lot of the stuff I'm talking about here was curated and honed through the working with car dealers for 15 years every day, and even the manufacturer. So that's really kind of exciting for me today to have this book out. We released it in July, so I'm glad to be here talking to you guys about it and really just helping set the table, because, everybody's being taught to change, right? We've been beating that drum on change and why you need to change, whether that's technology, whether that's, processes. But most people won't admit change is hard. As the saying goes, change is easy, you go first. So no one typically wants to do that. And my thesis here and the premise of the book is that change is not really what you're after, because people make mistakes there. They think you can wake up tomorrow and be different. What we're really trying to do is get position. So if a dealership is trying to grow, if a vendor is trying to grow, the goal isn't simply what they need to change to grow. It's how do they need to get position, and how does that break down? Because it's more than one thing. It's kind of like Voltron, right? The Voltron pieces can do individual things, but when they all come together, that's when it's unstoppable. And that's kind of the key here and what we're work with and talk about in the book.
I would have never expected a Voltron analogy coming out, Cory.
Yeah, just Gen X is in the house right now for sure.
That was sort of badass.
He just wheeled over and it's like he's laughing at me over there. But because it fundamentally, but like even everybody knows. I mean, everybody gets Voltron, right? At least. So
well, not really,
unless,
but
only if you're
our generation does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're right. So somebody pulled out
Ages
CDs yesterday, and I was looking at them sideways, like a CD. I'm like, what do you do with that? And everyone's really, the Gen Zs or whatever alphabet we're on now. All that stuff is tremendously foreign to them, and it's pretty scary.
Yes.
Or that Voltron thing's like vintage now. That's more scary.
Right. Well, word choice is important, right? So vintage is a great word, so we don't have to say old.
Yes. We are becoming vintage.
Yeah. They don't think this anymore. We're like a beta.
Another 10 years, it'll be archaic.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. That's right. That's funny. So yeah, that's what we've been to answer your question. We're just really excited about what we're doing with that, and that now translates into stuff we're sharing with audiences all over the country. Our virtual training that matches to this, and our coaching and everything just kind of wrapped around this idea of the importance of positioning in the marketplace. Whether it's a car dealer, salesperson, or like I said, even on the vendor side, it's the same kind of strategy and ideas that we want to have to grow. And that's kind of what everybody's trying to do. So if you're not stuck, stalled, or stagnant right now, you are asking yourself, how do we keep momentum? What are some of the steps that we can do to keep the momentum going? If you are stuck, stalled, or stagnant, meaning it ain't doing this, it's doing this, or possibly doing that, you really have to start paying more attention to the areas of business that are most active for you to get position and to create growth.
So what would be the difference between positioning, and we can use a car dealership for example. What would be the difference between positioning something for growth versus changing?
Yeah, so obviously the big thing people get wrong about change is we think we can do it overnight, right? So we'll have a meeting. Use automotive. Obviously, I can talk about that all day. Dealer goes to a 20 group, sees something interesting, comes back, declares this is the new policy of the store, right? I saw this on Monday. I woke up. I'll give you an example. We talk about it in the book. Dealer says, I'm having a problem with my general sales manager. Okay, great. What's the problem? Let's talk through it. Well, I want our dealership to be more like the Ritz-Carlton. If a customer wants to know where the bathroom is, I don't want you to point where it is. I want you to walk them to the bathroom. And he says, my management team just doesn't understand that. So I stepped back for a minute, and you guys have known me a long time. one of the things I'm known for is kind of being, it's kind of black or white, right? It rather makes sense or it doesn't make sense. There's not a lot of ambiguity to things. So I asked him a couple key questions. I said, number one, let me ask you this. Did you call a meeting? He said, yeah. I said, did you stand up in the meeting and say, we need to be more like the Ritz-Carlton, and if somebody wants to know where the bathroom is, you need to take them there? And he said, yeah. And I said, did you kind of basically just adjourn the meeting after that? And he stopped for a minute, he paused, he smirked, and he said, well, not quite like that, but kind of. So I said, you never for a moment asked yourself, has your general sales manager even stayed at a Ritz-Carlton? Do they even know what that experience is? Do they even have a belief system that paying $1,000 a night for a hotel makes sense, right? They may think that's egregious. They may think that the Tom Bodette leaving the light on for you at Motel 6 is good enough, right? Cory, what do we need a hotel for? Just to lay down. I just need some clean sheets. You didn't tap into the belief system. You didn't tap into any of the context that goes along with trying to change. So when we go, we're going to call customers 7 times before we mark them unsold or whatever. Our version of change and most business owners' version of change is dictating a policy and then expecting that just to happen. Positioning is now a series of things that I'm going to do to identify, isolate, and attack a particular issue to, over time, allow it to create an opportunity for me to scale. So there should be training involved in that. There should be that exercise. There should have been an explanation going on in that Ritz-Carlton example. Because what he's really saying is we want to raise the level of customer experience that we have in our dealership. Tying it to Ritz-Carlton is like you saying to me, well, not everybody knows what Voltron is, right? Fair statement. But it's the same idea. You saying Ritz-Carlton, that doesn't make me change by osmosis. Steve Jobs has a saying. He says he had a saying, I should say, R.I.P. Steve Jobs. But the saying, one of his many sayings was, "You can't mandate productivity. It's an organization's responsibility to give its team the tools they need to be effective." And that's a big gap between the things that we ask. There'll be a Saturday sales meeting tomorrow where they're going to talk about follow-up, and they're going to talk about appointments. They're going to talk about all these things, and they're going to talk at them about what they should be doing. Many times instruction does not follow that. Steps don't follow that. What the micro, oh, Cory, we want to double our business. Okay, well, that doesn't happen tomorrow. So what are we going to do differently tomorrow to start that process?
Gotcha. Almost sounds like more of a culture change for, I guess depending on what topic.
Yeah, I mean, so we base everything on the 5 pillars. So I found that after 20 years of doing this work, that there's no business growth issue that doesn't fall in one of the 5 pillars. And that's mindset, sales, marketing, operations, or people. Now, when I say those 5 things, they're not groundbreaking. But scientifically, I don't want them to be groundbreaking, because the first step to getting someone to make a change is to give them familiar language and familiar ways to think about that. So while the pillars are very familiar, the tactics within each pillar become important. And mindset is number 1 for a reason, right? They're not in arbitrary order, but mindset is number 1 for a particular reason. Mindset can translate to culture, mindset, because that's belief system. Jeff, if I said to you, because we remember best and worst. So Jeff, if I said to you right now, tell me the best party you've ever been to in your life, you might think for a moment. You probably can't say it on broadcast, but you might think for a moment and be able to go, okay. And if I said, Alex, tell me the worst party you've ever been to in your life, you might think for a moment and think about all the terrible things that happened. But if I said to either one of you, tell me the 32nd party you'd been to in your life, you'd have no idea how to figure out what that was or where that is. And that's how our experiences are driven. We remember best and worst. So when we think about adjusting a mindset, you've got to start from the foundation that I can't just make business decisions purely based on what was in my rearview mirror or best and worst, because we see that every day. Something happens, the dealership goes bad, dealer wants to change the policy on that and make it some type of instant scenario because of one issue. Not that issue happening 25 times, but an issue once, it was bad. Maybe it cost the dealer money. Maybe it created a bad situation. It was a bad review. Now we're going to go change a whole series of things because of one bad experience. Well, that in itself is a bad idea.
I found most businesses, especially car dealerships, are notorious for that.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times it stems from the fact that we view everything in a 30-day window. So we become very reactive. And I take that's sort of what you're referring to, quit being reactive. If you need to change something, you got to get to the heart of the solution.
Well, and you also think about fundamentally, there is an inherent need based on the DNA of a car dealer, typical car dealer, right? I won't lump everybody in, but there's a thing inherent to be right or to win an argument or a debate. So we see this all the time. Customer has a bad experience. They leave a review. Oh, I'm calling the attorney general, right? And then now we go off the handle, right? Because we're triggered by something. Now it's a need to be right. Well, you know what, Mr. Customer, I was going to fix your issue, but now because you're a smart aleck about it, I'm not doing anything soon if you want to, win this case, right? And then we just throw the idea of the effect on our reputation, the effect on reviews, the effect on all those things. It's just the transparency level is so different, nowadays. Or you'll see a bad review and you'll see somebody reply to it. This isn't necessarily a car dealer doing the reply, but you'll see, particularly in the small business world, you'll see an owner reply to it just as nasty as whatever the person was saying, because now logic goes out of the window and we're now just focused on being right, or the raw ego. I'm not going to let anybody threaten my business. And then it's like, dude, this was a $800 issue. And I was just having this conversation because I remember years ago, service customer had a bad experience in an Audi dealership, and he was an attorney, so he didn't sue, but he thought it'd be more interesting to do pay-per-click ads on the dealer's name. So every time somebody was searching the dealer, it came up dealernamesucks.com, and there was his freedom of speech blog about everything that happened to him. And I remember having a conversation with a dealer. I said, what is this issue? He said, it's a $1,200 issue. I said, are you kidding me? We're letting this guy buy pay-per-click ads. So you're spending money on pay-per-click ads to drive actual sales traffic and service traffic. They've got first position. This guy is outspending you in first position on your name, and you're allowing it to happen over $1,200. Well, I'm not going to let somebody dictate how I should run my business. Dude, come on. True story. I'm there. It's like a decade ago, but I'm there like it's happening right now. Just I'm reliving him looking me in the face at the restaurant and going, I'm not going to let somebody dictate. Oh, but you'll let them legally slander your name.
Yeah, I wonder which one has more of an impact.
Right, because you clearly weren't losing $1,200 of, because that's how we are, right? I won't eat at a restaurant with bad. If I look at a review and I look at a series, right, starting from most recent, because I don't care what you did 2 years ago. If I look at a pattern, one bad review is fine. Somebody gonna have a bad day, disgruntled. I read what the review says. So, nobody answered the phone, 1 star. That's not a reason that the chicken parm is bad. But I'm gonna read the reviews. If I see a series of reviews back to back or a pattern there, you're toast. And that's what business owners never count. And car dealers never count that. We count numbers once the numbers occur. We can't count the things that never happen, the people that never will call, that never will put in the lead, that never will get on a chat, that never will request a quote because of something else that's out there about you or your process or the 72 pop-ups on your website that I can't view on mobile because it's a train wreck. You can't count any of those stats.
Nope.
Because the customer's already made it. I will never know if the chicken parm is good or bad because there were too many things that were a deterrent before I got there to find out. And what a great tragedy.
For sure.
You guys are mellow. I always love you all. Your question's gonna come, and it's gonna come like this at this delivery. And then I'm like this, but go ahead.
Well, I'm more of the so I was guilty of this as a car dealer, and almost all car dealers I talk to are as well. It's hard to do this when you're in the day-to-day minutia and trying to live through a process or build a process or whatever it might be. But trying to put yourself in the customer's shoes is ridiculously hard as a car dealer. For some reason, I feel like it's different in other businesses where things are a little more straightforward. They're not as complex.
I mean, so, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, there's one example, and this is, and I've said this. I've lost count of how many times I brought this up on Refresh Friday, but it was the one that opened my eyes to me being this way. And it was after I had stopped being a dealer. I became a civilian. I had moved to Vermont. I wasn't working at Checkered Flag in Virginia anymore. And I had an Audi, and I had to take it in for service. And I went to the local service drive in Burlington, and they had the same entrance, but they had a red carpet to the Audi window counter and a muddy trail to the Volkswagen one. And
Told you where they stood.
yeah, the Volkswagen guy had this Cintas uniform on, Ralph, whatever his name, stitched on name thing was. And the Audi guy had a blazer on and a collared shirt. And as soon as I walked in, you must be Mr. Snyder. And then on the Volkswagen side, it was next, and there's a line of people. And it was like, I could see that the dealer thought, okay, I want my Volkswagen customers to buy Audis, and I'll make them, want an upgraded experience. And I'll set this up that way. And that was the motivation, I believe.
That might be one of the dumbest ideas I've heard in recent history. Now, what do I know? I don't own the car dealership. He's got the tens of millions of dollars, and I don't. But that's got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because what we know statistically is, now I'll give you the opposite of that. I'll give you the Pontiac. I'm dating myself a little bit, but the Pontiac Buick GMC dealer, only because I remember the stories, that was doing $4,500 a copy, not special finance, just regular through the deal. And everybody wanted to know, everybody at GM and other people wanted to know what they were doing. But if you went to the dealership and you looked at the dealership, you looked at the service lounge, you looked at the amenities, you looked at, this was when, this guy had the 12 beverage selection, the soda fountain machine in there, the stuff for the kids. So this was early on. This isn't like, oh, everybody has that now, even though they don't. There's still somebody serving Sanka at a dealership somewhere, that you believe. But this is when doing that. So the statement was, if I treat my Buick customer or my GMC customer like a Mercedes buyer, they will pay more. That was the thesis. And that was proving him to be, at the time, one of the most profitable Pontiac Buick GMC dealers, at least in the region, if not top 10 in the country, based on that philosophy. So that idea that you just laid out, how dumb is that? I can't make a lot of money on a Volkswagen customer or have a high profit Volkswagen deal. It's all like,
it was
a crazy premise.
It was my first time being a real customer, and that's just what I saw there. They've since, now the buildings are across the street from each other, and they're not combined. And the Volkswagen setup is actually very nice. But
good. I'm glad
this was 14 years ago.
Probably Volkswagen made them do that, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Not a lot of volunteering to change those doorknobs. So I think that I think that that's where the whole, that's what the whole idea of mindset and viewpoint is. And the philosophy, you can change the furniture, but if you don't change the philosophy, you'll just have a lot of disgruntled customers sitting on nicer seats, right? Because if that philosophy didn't change, a dealer said to me one time, we called him 9 times. We prospected him 9 times. And he says, isn't the fact that I didn't call you back an indication that I'm not interested? And I said, well, gee, I hope that is not the philosophy of your sales team when it comes to follow-up. That's how somebody ends up in status 7 category which is goodbye, sayonara, take care, brush your hair in the CRM after the third phone call. If that's the belief system that you have as an owner down the line, then you've got leakage all over the place.
He's not positioned for growth.
You're gonna take this on the road.
How do we get a dealer to understand the customer's position and see that what you've implemented in your store or your website is really not a fun experience?
Well, I think there's a couple things that come to mind. Number one, many dealers, I'm not talking about the progressive people we hear about all the time. I'm talking about the average dealer that's out there, and even conglomerate, because you're even more unattached, right? If you're in a corporate office somewhere in this scenario. But the average one, so we used to do an exercise when I would go into a store, and that exercise was I'd get the dealer in a room, I'd ask a series of questions, I'd get the tier management team, executive director, GM in the room, ask the same series of questions without the dealer, and then I'd get your next level down or till I got to the front line. So the questions usually revolved around defining a process or what is supposed to happen. And I won't even make up a statistic because people love to do that to sell their point. What I will simply say is the overwhelming majority of the time, I got different stories about the same process or idea or what was supposed to happen from each different person or entity that I talked to based on their level. So first thing is the average dealer does not know what goes on when someone submits the lead. Or the dealer's not calling his own store, he's calling his GM from his cell phone to his GM's cell phone. He's not calling through the store to see how screwed up the IVR is and to realize somebody's got a vacation message still on from February. So that's number one. Just put yourself in the process. Two, Alex, in a lot of ways, this comes down to investment. I mean, as somebody who called on dealers for 15 years and had dealers who, not everybody was, let me put it this way. I don't think I called on a dealer in 15 years that I could not help in some way. Of course, all of them didn't see it that way. Whether they worked with someone else or didn't do anything at all, it's that part that is the problem. The same dealer right now that has the XYZ problem, the problem with follow-up or the road to the sale process in their store, is the same one that will refuse to take the phone call or will refuse to make the investment. Because if you're not going to take the inside view look, because you can't see the picture in your frame, you need to rely on professionals and invest in professionals who do that work and can bring those things to the surface. So the answer isn't simply making them, how do they take on the view of the customer? Because of course, a car dealer who owns 12 stores is not going to have the same viewpoint as the customer coming in to buy a Corolla, right? But they have their own version of customer, but they do have their own version of customer experience because they are at the Ritz-Carlton. They still have to consume stuff. They've still got to go buy a dishwasher or paper towels at the store. So they're not immune to what a customer experience should look like, what a good one looks like, or what a bad one looks like. But number one, you have to care about that. Do you care enough? In that example that you laid out in the Audi and the Volkswagen, that dealer knew what the setup was. He knew there was a red velvet carpet over here and a dusty mat and a guy in the Centos outfit. He knew, he or she, but had to care about that. And if he or she didn't see it through that lens, then the question is, who do they go to or depend on to bring that to light? I'll give you a quick example. Dealer says, Cory, I want to upgrade my service lounge. I put a few dollars away. I'm gonna get iPads I want to get iPads for the customers in the lounge. I said, sounds great. Because I always want to acknowledge, right? In sales, we always acknowledge the statement first. So, sounds great. Mike, I'm going to change the name. Sounds great, Mike. Before we do that, let me ask you a quick question. Is that what your customers want? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you've got 110 customers coming through the service department today. You've got 25,000 customers in your database. You're here. You've got customers in the lounge right now. Did we ever go, hey, folks, as a value customer or dealership, we're looking for ways to upgrade our service lounge. We're considering doing these 5 things, right? I don't know, unlimited beverages, iPads, cable TV, whatever. What of these 5 options would be most interesting to you? Or you can write in like the other column. He pauses. He says, I never thought about that. Said, well, there you go. You should pay my fee for a year in advance. $20,000 on iPads that are going to get broken, stolen, constantly be updated. Nobody's going to maintain them. All in the name of, wouldn't it be cool to have iPads?
Yeah, bad choice.
Yep.
Right. I go through a phase of sympathy, empathy, and anger. Like when I think about the dealer environment, right? We're empathetic because, yes, there's a million things coming after you. You've got employees that all have got their employee issues. You've got customers that all have their customer issues. So you're empathetic to what's happening. But then on a granular level, I look at decision by decision by decision that gets made, and then I just get mad. And I go, why? This just doesn't make any sense. Why are we doing it this way? And 80% of the time, the answer is because that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
That smells like opportunity.
So what can they get out of the book to help them move in a better direction?
Excellent question, Alex. The reality of it is what we go through here in kind of my direct style, for people who aren't familiar with it, is what I really literally break down here is we go into these 5 pillars. Again, we make the case for why positioning is more valuable than simply changing. The typical problems that you see within that. So I focus on these 5 pillars. What's neat about how we've structured the book is the first set of chapters are about the importance and need of the 5 pillars, why it makes sense. Obviously, from an automotive standpoint, I'm most known as a trainer, and then that evolved to consulting and other things. But at the foundational trainer level, one of the most important things for me as a trainer at that time back then was to always explain a concept, never dictate a concept. So if I wanted them to execute their BDC a certain way, if I wanted a salesperson to follow what back then was called our 722 model, 7 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, was a model that we trained based on. If I wanted them to do that, I first wanted them to understand why what I'm asking to do would be effective for them, right? What the outcome will be. Then we go into the tactic to execute it. So I do the same philosophy here. The first half of the book goes through the 5 pillars, but in a way that says, okay, here's the problem. So within sales, mindset, marketing, here are the problems that are being faced. Here's why you need to pay attention to this. And then the second half, we look at the 5 pillars in action. So now when we go into mindset or we go into sales, we give them these specific keys to steps they can take to get positioned in that particular area. So one of the things that we will talk about is what I call who else-itis, which is big in the industry. And Alex, you face this because you're in a tech business, right? You've got a SaaS product, you've got a tech product, you've got a product that you have to educate people on, right? So they can really see the effectiveness of it. Well, the problem with who else-itis, and mind you, itis is a medical condition, right? So bronchitis, bursitis, arthritis, bad. So bad, bad, bad. Who else-itis is just as bad. Who else-itis is this. A dealer will see a product or service. Maybe one of your guys, Alex, will call on them, or they'll be at NADA and come to your booth or any of those things. And they'll go, this could impact our business. I see how this could really help us become more efficient, become more profitable. And then they go, Alex, sounds good, but let me ask you, who else is doing it? And then if they don't like that answer, if they don't hear the Automotive News top 125 dealer, or they don't hear the name that they want, they don't buy. That affects their buy-in. And that is just a dumb way. I didn't go to business school, but I studied business school. Like a lot of people during COVID, I went through a lot of training at Wharton's Executive Education School. And one of the things that they will talk to you about is FMA, which is first mover's advantage. Well, you never can get an FMA or first mover's advantage if you're waiting for what 13,222 other dealers are doing. Best practices kill sales growth every single time, because all best practices are mastering average.
I got another one for you on that one.
Good point.
Please.
It's the rule of equal incompetence.
Explain.
So this was one I picked up on during my dealer days, where it was always like, okay, let's go hire that sales manager from that store over there. And then that sales manager would come in, and all the things that he'd implemented over there, he would bring over with him. And what ends up happening over time is the entire marketplace just becomes equally incompetent. Everybody's doing the exact same thing to the same incompetence level.
Right. Great news. I'm bringing my team with me. So in the people pillar, it's a great example. In the people pillar, the first thing I talk about is you got to stop doing rescue hires. So a rescue hire is an opportunity for you to hire somebody that you think will come in and fix your problem. Not integrate into your system, integrate into your culture, but you're hiring them to solve the problem, right? So I need a new sales manager. Great, this guy looks good. He's worked here, there, sounds good on paper, because I got a problem. When you do rescue hires, you overlook all the red flags that exist in a hiring process. Sales managers shouldn't be interviewing salespeople unless they've been trained on how to interview. Interviewing is a skill. It's not just something because you're a good closer that now you automatically, through just bring it on in, know how to do. Right? These are skills that need to be implemented and learned in the process so we can make a more effective hire. So you're not complaining to me that there aren't any good people out there. No, there are good people out there. They just don't work here.
Yeah. I'm curious, because you have been doing this so long.
Yeah.
Well, what's your favorite chapter in your new book?
That's funny. Really, it's probably a couple things. One is just the idea that the action plan, the piece that we talk about near the end. It's kind of like, what do we really need to do? So we've got an online assessment, a one-pager that they can go do to really kind of figure out where they are within these 5 pillars to look at the opportunity. And then CAPI is one of my favorite things to talk about, which is CAPI, because we love acronyms, right? And it's a great momentum builder. It's celebrate, assess, plan, and implement. And people skip the celebrate part. When we want to talk about process improvement, we jump to what's wrong and what we need to do. We don't take a moment. We didn't hit the sales number last month, but we beat last year, right? We don't do it. We just go to what was the problem? Oh, we were off 20% on this, 10% of that. We didn't do that right. We didn't do this right. So celebrating is a huge part. And, I coach entrepreneurs all over the country, and we start a call with what went right. I know we're going to talk about, part of why they retain me is to help them work through issues and challenges. But before we get to the issue and challenge, tell me something that went right. Tell me a deal that came in that you were working. Tell us about something that happened in the process. Tell me about a great review you got from a customer. So we want to celebrate that. Then we go and assess where we need to take the next steps. Then we plan, and then we work the implementation. So it's really that idea, getting kind of to the tail end, because we walk them through each of those areas and we give them specific tactics. So we give them strategy, and then we give them a tactic to say, okay, great. Yeah, my recruiting stinks. How do I solve it? Okay, great. I need to get away from these rescue hires. I need to be focused on customer experience. I need to be asking myself, is our process dealer-centric in this case? I'll say business-centric in the book, but is our processes business dealer-centric, or are they customer-centric? Did we build a workflow inside of our dealership that is convenient for us or convenient for our customer?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the type of things that we talk about, and you come out of this with the ability to ask yourself some questions and then have a pathway to take answers that when you pay attention to each of the pillars, you get positioned for growth. When people talk about things just clicked, oh, Cory, I grinded on this issue for 6 months, and then one day I woke up and everything was just rocking. Well, you and I both know it was things you were doing along the way. I took a meeting last week that next June may bear fruit. So so if I have a great June, it's not because of June, it's because of something I did 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
If I see a bump on Amazon after being on Dealer Refresh, it's in our book sales. It's not because, right? It's not just because I was on here, but it was because we planned this, because I reached out, because you reached out, and we put this in motion weeks and weeks ago. So
Mm-hmm.
that positioning, but I might not even be here. I know I've got an open invitation, but I might not even be here if I didn't have something new and fresh to talk about that was interesting. So it all
Corey,
kind of
you're
goes.
always interesting.
I appreciate that,
Come on now.
but you're so funny. But yeah, so it's really about the roadmap and the journey.
Okay. Well, it also seems as if you, and correct me if I'm wrong, you almost built a whole platform over this book. I see
Yeah.
on your website you've got something like the inner circle.
Yep, 100%.
Does all that tie in together?
100%. So yeah, the pillars. So that is my 7 habits of highly effective people. As I say, it's really position for growth. Really, is our thought process. It's our philosophy moving forward. It's the lens that we take everybody through, whether it's the collision repair company that we're working with, or the moving company, or frankly the car dealer. As I said, I was just with 125 Kentucky auto dealers at their convention, doing the presentation on position for growth and putting this book into everybody's hands as car dealers. It's not agnostic. It's not industry specific, because everybody has the same kinds of people issues, right? The people issues in the car dealership may revolve around the job titles aspect of it. So we may call ourselves something different, but that guy's got the same problem. That person has the same problem that someone has in the landscaping business, or any sales organization, right? Still deals with prospecting, inbound, outbound, follow-up. So the ideas are really applicable across the scale. And that, is one of the things that's most exciting. But yeah, we've built our whole framework around that. And a lot of what we've done, Jeff, is really repurpose and retool. So in our inner circle that you mentioned, we have a whole Lightspeed platform. I know you're familiar with that name and term as an LMS, but that Lightspeed platform originated, Mosley 24/7 originated as our automotive only online platform in 2014. So what we just basically did, as we've kind of gone to a broader range audience, is we just retooled that system to now be for the modern business owner, for the business owner that's looking for ongoing process improvement and development. And from a content perspective, how the car business has helped so much also is it also trains you, if you're someone in the information business, because you're used to dealing with short attention spans. Alex, tell me the last dealer that gave you 3 hours to present freaking tech to somebody, right? That doesn't, they don't have that attention span. Sometimes you're lucky if you get 15 minutes. So our content, and even how we approach that, it's no muss, no fuss, no BS, no fluff, right? Why take an hour to deliver content to you that I can deliver to you in 15 minutes? So just even the thinking, we built it for busy business owners. So people who have things to do, not people who just want to sit around and wax poetic about, what they're going to do or what they did 30 years ago or whatever.
I like it.
Yeah.
And I don't think you mentioned Amazon. Is that the only place you can get the book?
You can buy direct on our website. So now we have inventory. I'm not saying this to be special, but we didn't have inventory for a while. You could only get it on Amazon. Now we do have some inventory at the office. So they can go to CoryMosley.com and buy the book. And if anybody cares, I sign them when they buy them from there. But, again, for me, however we get the message out is important. We will do an Audible. I just got to get around to recording it, because I do it myself. So we'll have the Audible for my people who can't read, read, or don't like to read, I should say.
Or have a long commute.
Yeah. So
it's good. It's good that you're reading it, though. I like that.
So we'll get it on Audible, and then I'm getting emails about Kindle now. So we needed to get this in front because we had so many books pre-sold because of some events I was doing that we had to get print out first, and now we'll work on the other stuff. So, but it's been fun. It's been cooler than I thought it was going to be. I never cared about Amazon bestseller stuff. I would joke about that most of the time because a lot of people, you know, whatever you're into, like have different ways to buy their way into that kind of number one. Or, you know, you've got kind of a book on sales, but it's number one in transportation. A little weird, but now you're number one. So I was pleasantly surprised. We actually did get number one hot new release in strategy, which it's a book on strategy. So not yoga. We were number one in yoga category for 2 seconds. So I was very, very excited about that. And that frankly was just asking people. I mean, Jeff, I know you got the, I was texting everybody. We were emailing people that we were emailing our network and just saying, hey, love for you to come support the book. And thankfully people did. But yeah, we get on Amazon and then we'll have some other modes coming. And then if you order directly off our website, we'll send it to you there. Or if I'm coming to an event near you, you'll probably see me in a few more dealer associations next year. We make sure everybody gets a copy, you know, when they attend those events as well.
Nice. Speaking of events, do you have any upcoming events? And are you still doing the automotive event in the DC area?
I'm not doing the automotive event anymore. We tried to do one. I can't remember, like fresh out of COVID or whatever. We tried to reorganize it, and you know, these events are tough, man. Like just in terms of getting people, it's the same. One of the last automotive events I did, it was before COVID. This is just an interesting forum to have this conversation. But one of the last automotive events I did, guy came in the bathroom. I finished speaking and I went in the bathroom. I went to the restroom. And he comes in and, you know, I'm at the wash thing, you know, washing my hands. And he said, oh, man, I just want to tell you, you know, great job. Really, really excited what you were talking about. He said, man, as messed up as these car dealers are, you'll be in business forever. And I finished washing my hands. I never forget it. I mean, I tell the story a lot, but it's vivid in my head. And I'm grabbing the paper towel and finish my hands. I turned to him and I said, you know, first, thank you for the compliment. Appreciate that. And I said, yeah, to your other point, being in the automotive industry is like being in the NFL. Yes, you can make millions of dollars, but if you end up with CTE at the end of it, was it really worth it? And the tragedy in a lot of ways, because I think about this all the time, the auto industry, particularly at the dealer level, is typically the educational opportunity or barrier is usually dictated by one person. So the idea as to if I could reach your salespeople and really educate them, make them better, show them how to make more money, that decision is usually made by one person.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we come to the workshop. Oh, I'd love to come to your workshop. Our dealer won't, the GM won't, the sales manager won't. And it is the greatest tragedy because we are not trained in auto like you're trained in the real estate business, right? You want education. You know how many times I heard, I'd love to come, but my dealer won't pay.
Yep.
So we're not trained the same way,
forever.
right? Self-education. So the greatest tragedy when I see, particularly a lot of my contemporaries and my colleagues from the industry who were trainers, fellow consultants, fellow coaches in the marketplace, when they put on their events, they do their events, that room should be, because I know the quality of their work. I also know the quality of people in most instances that they'll have there. And I'm talking more of the events that are put on more by industry folks than we get into the convention, you know, the juggernauts now that own all of the big events. But I know that there's actually good content. I know that you actually can pick up things and learn your business. And it's such a great tragedy to me to think so many managers that could get better, salespeople to get better, BDC, service, like I think of Chris Collins and service and events and the people on that side of the business. But so many of them that will never get the information that could truly take them to the next level because one person who's not even there anymore, may not even be there 6 months later or 1 year later, said, I don't think we need it.
That's a good point. That happens all the time.
So Jeff, to your point, no, I don't do it anymore because the juice was no longer worth the squeeze. Now, I did them a little differently. You come out to some of my things. There wasn't a lot of pomp and circumstance. I wasn't selling booths and all those things. So economically, because of my model, and I'm not knocking anybody that does that. I just mean that was never a cornerstone of my deal.
Yeah.
Selling the napkins with your logo on it and all that stuff. It was more about the content and minimal barrier to entry to it wasn't a ton of money for a sponsor to kind of speak or set up shop. So it was very lean. So if you don't have the audience or you're fighting to get the audience, it's just like the last one we were going to do. We were doing Top Golf. I mean, it was going to be cool, but we just couldn't get the dealers or the dealer, the frontline people. So, but I am proud to say two major things. One, we were one of the first people with a multi-city before Digital Dealer existed. There was the Online Sales Success Workshop. There's only one other company that did an event before we started doing events. Like, I forget what they were called, Dealer's Edge or something, had done something.
Yeah.
We were one of the first people to do it. We hit 14, 15 cities during our time over multiple years. So I'm super excited that we were able to do that. And at least I still talk to some of those dealers and GMs today. Or the people that I used to, in my presentation, saying that the internet manager today is tomorrow's general manager. So I'm so excited to now still be in contact with those people that were internet managers that now on their LinkedIn, it's general manager, operating partner, dealer. That's just a tremendous thing to look back at. And they never sent me checks to follow through on their success, but that's neither here nor there.
No. If people want a copy of your book, website URL,
CoryMosley.com.
Information.
Yeah, CoryMosley.com. That's the easiest way. People laugh when I say just type my name into Google. I mean, and for you guys, same thing. When you've been around so long, like there's so many overnight gurus. There's across all, not even like automotive, but there's so many, because you can run an ad tomorrow and be a guru, right? I can just start running my ads and now I'm a guru. So I always tell people I'm not saying it with any level of arrogance because people know me. I don't think there's anybody out there who ever accused me of being like an egomaniac or something like that. But
I think Steve Stoning has.
What'd you say?
Steve Stoning has.
I absolutely know that's not true. That's my guy. So I know for sure, shout out to Steve, that is absolutely not true. But I always say, Google me and you're going to find everything because we work very hard to make sure we control the real estate as much as we can of what you see in terms of it being something that leads back to our property, even if it's my LinkedIn page, still just the idea that you're never.
I hear if you start typing Cory Mosley into Google, you get Jennifer Suzuki now.
And that's perfectly okay because she can have it all. She, Hurricane, Sean, Bradley, they can have all the car dealers that their heart desires.
No, we actually have a thread going on the forum now about divorcing Google. Actually, it's going across the bottom ticker here, just because of their changing the
algorithm,
your results
search
that
results.
You're looking for. Yeah.
Well, and owning the audience is something that we talk about. That's like the danger when the people are out there, build your Facebook group up. Yeah, well, when they change anything, they change visibility, deliverability, all those things. But you know what you can't take away from me? You can't take my email database away from me. You can't take my closed system. So our clients that are on Lightspeed and are in our system, Google can't take them away from me. Facebook can't take them away from me. Elon can't take them away from me. And there's something to be said for, it's one thing to get reach and build an audience and be whatever, socially famous, but I want to own the audience. I mean, I want to own the audience and be able to communicate, only in a few minutes. If I want to go send a text message to 10,000 people in my database in our CRM, I can just do that. But if I go to my Facebook group and I post that same message, it's potluck. Oh, did you click the bell? Did you turn on this? Did you click this? Did you make sure I got visibility on? Do I got to put @followers, @highlight to get anybody to see things? Crazy.
That's why we
Yeah.
continue with the forums. I mean, we've seen plenty of other forums come and go, and of course, then once Facebook came out with the groups and pages, and
Yep.
all the other social avenues for all that. I mean, it initially had an impact on our traffic count,
Mm-hmm.
but it's been good to see it sort of come back over the past several years. And we own everything.
Yeah.
That's
And,
the
and and
content.
people know, people might sway because we're in information overload, we're in attention
Hmm.
overload. People might sway, but they know ultimately where value is, and they can make their own decision on value. Some people learn the hard way, right? I would meet a dealer that's like, oh, this all sounds good, Mosley, but we just worked with X, Y, and Z, and it was a disaster. We don't know if we want to work with consultants anymore. So sometimes you pay the price, right? The new boyfriend pays the price for what the last boyfriend did in some instances. But people ultimately will side with value or the home that they most associate it with. I would get asked the question for years. Oh, did you and Kane and Sean and Jen, did you all compete against each other? And was it a big? Not really. To my knowledge, we never really ran into each other because we had different deliverables. The outcomes we were after were the same, and the genre we were in at the time was the same, the BDC internet world. But we had different deliverables, different ways that we went about it, and we had different personalities. So there were people that might not like my energy. They might like shout out to David. They might like David's energy better, or his approach to things better. So we never had a who was better. That was that nonsense that came out with the new class that I like to say of we're going to fight it out in the lot and see who can close more deals and all of that absolute craziness. Because spoiler alert, closing a Corolla customer is much different than closing a car dealer. So, but it was never those kind of conversations about who was better. We never had that kind of stuff, to my knowledge, with that what I call foundational group. Because if you think about the foundational group and then the people who and being still around, there were people that were around that aren't around anymore. But when you think about the Suzukis of the world, when you think about David, myself, Sean Bradley, we all came in the game really at a very similar within a year or two of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we all shout out to Sean, maybe him not so much right away, but I would say this to his face too. But we all played well. We all had great. I mean, there was a time, Jeff, you probably remember when Kane, Suzuki, and I went on tour together. We did events together. So, and we all had different styles. It wasn't, who was better, who was this, who was that. So it is definitely a way that everybody can coexist. And we all wanted the same thing. We wanted people to come see us, hear us, read our content, enjoy our content, and be better than they were before. Someone buys this book, they will be better, I truly believe, than they were before they read it. And that's the goal. And we want to do that profitably, but that's always a goal. That's my goal for every single person who will watch this, every single person in the auto industry. Although it's not my day-to-day, it's everything I did, everything I built, learned, came from the auto industry. And whether frontline, right, living to tell the story, got the pictures, got the, whether frontline on the sales floor, working deals, or the BDC, going to consulting, being able to work with 7 manufacturers that we got up to, be able to work with and influence policies and procedures for the better, we hope, at the retail level. All of that was the car business. So it's a beautiful place and a phenomenal place. And there truly is no place like it.
No, there's not.
We can all agree. We can all agree.
Sure. That's a
Always
good way to end it.
Yeah. So thank you guys for all that you're doing, continue to do, because this is also, I don't know the P&L, but this is also a labor of love to a great degree, I'm sure, for what you guys are doing. And, both of you have careers. So coming back 19 years, continuing to do this, continuing to provide value and be in the conversation, right? If I go into the board, I'm going to see you there, not just we've created it for a place for people to chat amongst themselves. To be engaged and involved is just a thank you back to you guys. And, I'll see you next year.
I hope so.
Appreciate it, Cory. Really do appreciate your time as well.
My pleasure.
Always.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
Have a great
Cory.
weekend.
All right.